One thought I go back to is growing up in Oklahoma. I was stuck up there in the northeast corner of Oklahoma in a very tiny town called Picher, Oklahoma. And all around that area, it was, again, in the northeast corner. So you got southeast Kansas, you got southwest Missouri. Start thinking about this. And you got north and west Arkansas, and it kind of encompassed that little circular region of about probably 100 square miles. And my dad used to play clubs all over those areas back in the day when I was growing up. And I was really starting to get into guitar. I got my first guitar when I was 11 years old. It was an American Standard Telecaster. Seafoam green, one of the ugliest things you could ever imagine, but I loved it. I loved that guitar. It just felt so good in my hands. And it's the first guitar I learned on, But with my dad playing all those clubs in that area, he made lots of friends that were really, really good players. And my dad was a great musician in his own right. But he would take me to different guys early on when I was, 12, 13, 14, starting to learn pretty quickly back then how to play some blues stuff, how to play some country stuff, and how to play some rock stuff. And all these different teachers would teach me from their direction. And one guy would be a little rock, one guy would be a little country, one guy would be a little maybe blues, jazz. And you'd come from a whole different approach, whereas another guy would be, probably a little more of a chicken picker and be more like. He'd do something kind of crazy like that. And through the years, I think my evolution started happening because of my dad and his patience with me, first off, and he was so giving with his time for me. He used to lug those big Fender twin amplifiers with huge JBL speakers. Those magnets were this big around. He used to lug that thing into clubs for me to play along with him and his friends. And if I was going to say anything as far as influencing young kids out there, be nice to them, help them out. I was so fortunate to have my parents do that. And if you're good and sweet to a young teenager, they're going to remember it the rest of their life. So just keep that in the back of your head, especially when it comes to learning music and being influential to others. I think going back to this country thing again, it was really probably my biggest influence because my dad, it's kind of a funny story, but it's a true story. My dad was always harping country music on me. You need to go back and listen to Merle Haggard, and you need to listen to that Roy Nichols stuff back in the day. I just had this walkingness to it that was just so nice and so simple yet so interesting, And so I would go back and listen to his old cassette tapes, and he had old vinyl records and stuff too we'd listen to, and I would listen to how the attack was, and a lot of these albums I'd listen to were live versions, which is so cool. So you can really hear the difference in what they would do live versus what they'd do in the recordings they were doing in the studio. And I always loved how they'd stretch out and maybe, like for instance, the Merle Haggard great, I think I'll just stay here and drink, I think I'll just stay here and drink. Something like that, around that chord progression, that change, and that was such a big influence on me. I would sit in my bedroom all night long and try to learn those little chicken picking techniques with my fingers, And ended up just absolutely being absorbed by it. And the funny part to this story was I loved rock and roll too. And I was playing with bands. We're doing all the Metallica stuff. We're doing all the Sepultura stuff. I mean, I was playing our old Iron Maiden. I was doing all kinds of stuff you can only imagine. Since I had 3 older siblings, they loved all these different rock stylings as well. And I would play rock clubs when I was about 15 years old and play on a weekend. I wouldn't make squat. I mean, literally, I'd probably make about $40. And that's playing a good Friday night and a Saturday night at a teenage rock club, just having fun, playing Nirvana and Pearl Jam and all that stuff that everybody loves, and this other rock stuff I just told you. Well, come Sunday, Dad would always be playing those country bars or those honky tonks on the whole weekend, the same time I'm playing these country or these rock clubs. And he would say on Sunday, well, how much money did you make, buddy? I'd be like, I don't know, about 40 bucks, I guess I made. He'd like, well, I made about 250 this weekend. He said, I'm telling you, buddy, country music's where the money is. That's where it's at. And so back then I was doing all that rock stuff, but I'd be like, maybe he's right about this country thing, man. I should probably learn some more country stuff. And so I didn't run the country for the money. That wasn't it. No, I ran the country because I ended up figuring out I could play it. And it felt good to me to play it. And it felt so inspiring to have that in my bag, you know? And so all my rock buddies would be like, why are you doing that country stuff? Do you need to be doing this rock stuff? I'd be like, I just love it. I can't explain why. It just pricks my heart and just makes me want to play it. And I love playing rock too, but I love country just as much. And it's like, that was where I think I was kind of born in the music, was through my teenage years, blending all those styles together and loving them all equally, you know. I chose to lean more the country path, and I've been so fortunate because I've done that. I really have.